known as the Sage from South Central. Larry Eldred, he's unafraid to take on liberals and the Black Lives Matter movement with common sense. He's also known as America's truth detector. He's a brilliant thinker and communicator, and he reminds me of the brilliant Rush Limbaugh. He's a New York Times bestselling author of 4 books, including his latest, A Lot Like Me, A Father and Son's Journey to Reconciliation. His national TV show, Moral Court, was syndicated across the country and was at one time top-rated in New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago. He won a Los Angeles Emmy for Best News Special in 1999. And in 2015, he was awarded a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. I met Larry at one of our recent summits at Liberty Hawk Ranch. As accomplished as he is, he's also a genuine, compassionate, good man. Welcome, Larry Elder.
How am I supposed to live up to that, Kevin?
Well, it's so good to have you in the Economic War Room. I've been on your show a couple of times, and I appreciate that. That's an honor. And it's a rare thing for me to have you here in Economic War Room. I've been on your show, and in those cases, Larry, I got to tell you, sometimes you feel like the host knows more about things than the guest. And so you ask me these great, brilliant questions. I'm sitting there thinking, and you got the right answer. But Larry, tell me what the right answer is. All right, I have an off-the-wall question for you. As a Californian, do you know Clint Eastwood?
You know, I have met Clint Eastwood, and I once took a picture with him. I was standing next to my little jacuzzi I have in my house, and I was trying to fish out some leaves that were there. And I'm fishing it out, I had a robe on, my phone was in my pocket, and I fell into the jacuzzi. And it ruined the phone, ruined all the photographs I had in there, so I no longer have the photograph I have with Mr. Eastwood. But yes, I have met him. Great guy, down to earth, really easy to talk to.
Well, the reason I bring it up, and I got to meet him a few times when I lived in Carmel, but the reason I bring it up is our show is built on the premise of doing 3 segments, the bad, the good, and the beautiful. Now, Clint Eastwood is good, bad, ugly, and I hate ending with ugly, so we do bad, good, beautiful. So when we do that, I want to start this first segment and talk to you about the bad. There are a lot of troubles that we see today, the economy, the nation, relationships, and all that. Let's make this a game. You bring up a problem that you see in America, and we'll talk and see if there's an economic component to it. And then in the second segment, we'll come up with the solutions that you've got for us, and then we'll talk about the beautiful. So name some problems, and we'll see if we can make them economic issues.
Okay, I think the number one social problem in America is a large number of children who enter the world without a father in the home married to the mother. In 1965, Daniel Patrick Moynihan, a Democrat, later on became a senator from New York, wrote a booklet called The Negro Family, A Case for National Action. At the time, 25% of blacks were entering the world without a father in the home married to the mother, a fact that Moynihan attributed to slavery and to Jim Crow. We can debate that, but that's what he thought.
Right.
Fast forward, Kevin, 70% of black kids now enter the world today without a father in the home married to the mother. 50% of Hispanic kids do, 25% of white kids do, 40% of all kids in America. And Obama said, forget Elder, Obama said a kid raised without a father is 5 times more likely to be poor and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in jail. I argue what's happened is because of our welfare state, this is where the economic component comes in, we have incentivized women to marry the government and have incentivized men to abandon their financial and moral responsibility.
Oh, wow. All right. So you've given us a genuine bad. It's our culture collapsing, especially in minority communities, but really across the board. And then you said, here's the economic aspect. I've got a friend who said he remembers growing up and when things changed with Lyndon Johnson, he says, one time my mom wouldn't let me play with the neighbor kids because they got no daddy in the home. But then a few years later, we were shipping my dad off when the welfare people came by to pretend like there was no daddy in the home because we'd get more money. Is that what happened?
That's exactly what happened. And even a left-wing magazine called The Atlantic just a few months ago had a big article about all the decisions that a young couple makes when they bring a child into the world, from determining the name to determining what school. But no decision is more important than the neighborhood and whether or not that neighborhood has plenty of 2-parent households. The more 2-parent households, the better. When you're in a neighborhood where there are a whole bunch of single-parent households, all sorts of bad things flow from that. So,
perfect example.
And when Lyndon Johnson launched his war on poverty, Kevin, he literally sent social workers knocking on doors, door to door, to apprise women of the availability of welfare, provided there was no man in the house. So within a matter of a few years, the percentage of blacks who were on welfare exploded just in that little bit of time. And since then, we spent over $22 trillion on social welfare. If you look at a trend line and look at the proliferation of kids being brought into the world, those lines parallel each other. So again, there's a financial incentive, and it's also happening in England as well. So it's not just racial. You give somebody, you incentivize bad slovenly behavior, you're going to get more bad slovenly behavior.
Okay, perfect example of bad with an economic component. Give me a second one.
Second one is our abysmal education system in America, public government schools. Even though we spend more money K through 12 than any other industrialized country, I think, except for Switzerland and Luxembourg. The nation's report card, NELP, shows that almost half of all kids in our schools are neither math nor reading proficient. 85% of black kids, these are 13-year-olds, 8th graders, are neither math nor reading proficient. 85%, half of them don't even hit basic math, basic reading. So you have a large number of 13-year-old black kids who are functionally illiterate. Take Baltimore. 13 public high schools, Kevin, in Baltimore, 13, where 0% of the kids are math proficient, and another half a dozen where only 1% are. That's half of all the public high schools in Baltimore, and they're all in the inner city. Only 1 in 20 students in the government schools in Chicago are math proficient. 1 in 20. It's a recipe for disaster. We're being outperformed by our European and Asian counterparts. It's an absolute disaster. Yet the Democrats went at the hip to the teachers union, do not want school choice, which is what we ought to be talking about. The money should follow the child rather than the other way around. Let the parents control what school the kid goes to.
So that's a second one. Perfect example. Our society's crumbling because of an economic decision that's a failure. And that is to consolidate with unions and all that. Well, Larry, we're going to have to take a break, but when we come back, let's talk about a couple more, and then we'll go into economic solutions and how we can fix these.
I'm Kevin Sorbo. When you spend money, you consider who you're buying from and the causes they support. If you don't, then you're likely supporting companies that are trying to destroy our country and take away our freedoms. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. They're a cell phone company and a good one. They offer nationwide coverage on the best 4G and 5G networks along with 100% US-based customer support. But here's the deal. Patriot Mobile's mission has nothing to do with cell phones. They carry out their mission by giving back millions of dollars every year to Christian conservative causes that are actively engaged in the fight to save America. Voting is no longer enough to beat the woke. We have to band together, support like-minded companies, and vote with our dollars. That's how we win. Stop supporting companies that want to destroy America and join Patriot Mobile today by visiting patriotmobile.com or call 972-PATRIOT.
We're talking with Larry Elder, and we're talking about the bad, the problems that we're facing in society. He's in California, so he sees them first. If they're not here yet, they're coming here. You've listed, Larry, for us two big problems that we're facing. One of them is breakdown of our society in two-parent families, and the second one was the education system. Do you have a third one, a third problem that?
I do. Illegal immigration. Since the Biden administration has been in office, we now have 5 million illegal aliens in this country. We have no idea who they are, where they are, and some number of them we've caught have been on our terror watch list. Lord knows how many have escaped who are on the terror watch list. There's a huge economic drain of illegal immigration. California has probably 10% or so of the nation's illegal population, at least 10%, maybe even 20%. And a left-wing columnist named George Skelton some years ago estimated that the cost to California alone, mostly educational benefits and health care benefits, because you cannot, because the Supreme Court asked about somebody's immigration status when they enroll in school, but they wouldn't be enrolling in school if the parents weren't here illegally. So he added that to the cost of an illegal alien. $25 billion a year in California alone. And that was some years ago. I would imagine the number is much higher than that. And the people who are most hurt by illegal immigration are people living in the inner city, those with high school or less, because almost all the illegal aliens have high school or less. and they compete against Americans with that same educational level for jobs. And now they also put downward pressure on their wages. One of my friends is on the Civil Rights Commission. His name is Peter Kirsanow, and he says that 1 million more black men would have jobs but for illegal immigration. And the presence of illegal labor puts about $1,800 downward pressure on their wages, costing the country and the black economy almost $100 billion every single year. So it's a huge, huge cost. And of course, the burden on hospitals, the burden on schools, particularly in border states, can't be overstated. So it's a massive, massive, massive problem that I believe the Democrats have made worse on purpose because they believe at some point Republicans will say, okay, if you do reverse the anti-Trump policies that you hated and put the catch and release policy back in place and put Remain in Mexico back in place, we'll give you mass amnesty for a whole bunch of illegal aliens. That's what I believe the Democrats are doing to force Republicans to come to the table and do a deal they otherwise would not do.
Well, and you're right.
Of course, when you do that, Kevin, as Reagan did in '86, he thought there was going to be 1.5 million people to get amnesty. It ended up being over 3 million. And the deal was, okay, we'll do this amnesty, but please secure the border and punish employers who knowingly hire illegal aliens going forward. Well, the latter was not done, but we did get to 3 million illegal aliens who got legal status.
Yeah, and not only that, so there's two economic causes of that. One is we're paying a bunch of groups to bring people in. We're giving them, we think of them as charities, but all they're really doing is human trafficking. And the second economic component is the big businesses that are profiting from the illegal labor, and they're able to keep wages down. So there's huge economic component. All right, one more short one if you've got it.
I would. It's a tie between crime and the debt. In 1900, at all three levels, Kevin, you know this, government took less than 9% from the American people, around 9%. Today, it takes about 32%. And when you add a cost of mandates, the government takes at all three levels, federal, state, local, almost half what the American people produce. That is why we have this anemic growth rate, 2%, 3%. We brag now when it's 3%. We used to have 5 and 6% growth before the income tax and before government got as large as it is. But the other one, co-equal to this, is crime. We're having crime in all of our major cities, but that's also a function of not having a father in the home. Crime is up here in LA, violent crime up in LA, violent crime up in Chicago, it's up in New York. Part of it is because of the lack of fathers in the home. Part of it is the attack on the police, calling them systemically racist. They're pulling back. It's called the George Floyd effect or the Ferguson effect. Bad guys know it. Crime goes up, and the very people who are hurt the most are the very black and brown people that people like Black Lives Matter purport to care about.
Yeah, no, you've listed 5 now, and they're real problems, and they have real economic aspects to them. So let's talk solutions. How do we fix these? Name some of the programs or ideas that you have to solve these problems.
Well, regarding the borders, it's pretty easy, and that's re-elect Donald Trump and put the Trump policies back in place. We had the most secure border in our history because of what Donald Trump had done. And Joe Biden and the Democrats convinced themselves that Donald Trump was a racist, so they reversed his policies, not thinking them through, and now we have this problem. So it can be solved. I believe that we ought to build a wall as well.
But one thing you just said, which is really important, it is the opposite of being racist. If you care about the people here who are Americans, regardless of their racial background, they're being hurt by these policies. So actually, the open border policy is really the most racist.
Absolutely, it is. Regarding education, we need school choice. As I said earlier, the money should follow the child rather than the other way around. Where true school choice has been used, the graduation rates are better, reading scores are a little bit better, math scores are better. There's more safety on the campus, and parental satisfaction is much better. So we need to make sure that the money follows the child rather than the other way around. We're spending plenty of money. Here in California, almost half of the budget goes for education. So every time the budget goes up, there's more money being spent on education, and still they claim they want more money. The Archdiocese here in LA is educating kids at a fraction of the cost that the government schools are, largely because they have fewer bureaucrats. It's just in LAUSD, Los Angeles Unified School District, there's about 1 bureaucrat for every 1 teacher. With the Archdiocese, it's about 7 teachers for every 1 bureaucrat. So that's where the money is going. It's being misspent. And again, the competition will also improve public schools. So even those who remain in the government schools will have a better education when there's competition.
Yeah, could you repeat that one for one thing? That's an important point to get.
Archdiocese here in LA, there's 7 teachers for every 1 bureaucrat. The Los Angeles Unified School District, there's 1 teacher for every 1 bureaucrat. That's one of the reasons the money is being misspent.
No question about it. All right, so you've knocked down a couple. Keep going.
One other point, Kevin, on this. The proof is in the pudding. Fordham Institute, which is a think tank some years ago, did a study on where government school teachers with school-age kids sent their own kids. Nationwide, around 10% of us have our kids in private school. 6% of black parents do. 49% of Philadelphia public school teachers with school-age kids put their own kids in private schools. 39% Chicago. The people who know the school system the best, the teachers, aren't putting their own kids in it. What does that tell you?
Yeah, now that is proof right there of blatant liberal hypocrisy. They don't want us to have the privileges that they want for themselves.
I've often said it's the equivalent of opening up a restaurant, Kevin, putting up a big sign saying, "Come on in, eat the food. We won't."
Yeah, you wouldn't get many customers if you did that. All right, well, time for very quick, one more answer, and then third segment, we'll carry this over.
Well, regarding crime, we have to stop this nonsense that the police are systemically racist. It's called the Ferguson effect or the George Floyd effect. They pull back, and crime goes up. If you lower the chances of a bad guy being caught, being convicted, being incarcerated, surprise, surprise, crime goes up. They may be criminals, but they're not stupid.
No, not stupid. We'll be back right after a break, and we'll get to more solutions. We're talking with Larry Elder, and he's outlining some big problems, the bad. He's outlined some of the good solutions, and he's got a few more. And then I want to get your vision. So, Larry, what are some other solutions that we should put in place now?
Well, we need to do something about the runaway spending here. Both sides do it. Democrats do it. Republicans do it. I remember when Ronald Reagan ran in 1980, Kevin, he promised to shut down the Department of Education. When he left, the Department of Education was bigger than before. You know, once a government program has started, it's almost impossible to kill it. Reagan used to say, if it moves, tax it. If it keeps moving, regulate it. If it stops moving, subsidize it. And that's what we're doing. We need to tie the hands of Congress, and I urge that there be an amendment to our Constitution that limits spending to a certain percentage of our GDP, with exceptions for war and for natural disaster. That's the only way we're going to get spending under control. Both Bill Clinton and Barack Obama have said, and they've used the word unsustainable in talking about Medicare, Social Security, and Medicaid. Our population is getting older, they're living longer, And those programs are not sustainable. We need to do something to reform them. But when you do that, you're touching the third rail of politics. And anytime you do that, the other side will then accuse you of trying to end Social Security. You scare a bunch of senior voters, and they vote. And so nothing gets done. The can gets kicked down the road. But at some point, we need to deal with that.
Yeah, what I love about that, Larry, is the idea that if politicians love to spend money, okay, then make it possible for the economy to grow. The more we grow, the more money you can spend. That puts them on the same side of the table as the rest of us. We need growth before we can spend. Got to get a raise, right?
That's right. Government has no money. They can tax it, they can borrow it, or they can print it. That's the only way they get it. And each one of them has a negative consequence.
Well, if we can get them to growing the economy, and that's the only way they get an extra dollar to spend, that will cause a lot of economic growth, in my opinion. Okay, any other solutions?
Well, I think we need to encourage people there are think tanks on the left, like the Brookings Institution, and then on the right, like American Enterprise Institute.
Right.
And they may disagree about policy and about this and about that, but they agree on what it takes to escape poverty. Number one, finish high school. Number two, don't have a kid before you're 20 years old. Number three, get married before you have that kid. Number four, get a job, keep that job, don't quit that job till you get another job. And number five, avoid the criminal justice system. You do those things, you will not be poor. You don't do those things, there's a very good chance you will be. So we need to just get back to those kinds of values.
Well, you know, what you said there is important, because what you said earlier, we spent $22 trillion in the war on poverty, and we have a $32 trillion debt, which means 2/3 of our debt is directly related to a bad approach to poverty. You just outlined a good approach to poverty that any two-parent home would want for their kids. Don't have a kid until you're married. Finish high school, get a job. Those are things that parents want for their children. So we gotta fix the family.
Absolutely.
All right. So now you've got some time. Tell us the Larry Elder vision for America. What should America be like? What can it be like?
Well, Kevin, I'm going to break some news on your show. Larry Elder is thinking about running for president. And if I decide to, I'm going to make my decision by the end of this month. I have a political action committee called elderforamerica.com, and I'm urging people to throw a little something in the tip jar. What I want to do is talk about the obvious things that you and I have been talking about the need to secure the borders, about the need to do something about crime by no longer bad-mouthing the police and causing them to have the lowest morale that I've ever seen. We need to do something about our education. We need to do something about our spending. But I think I bring to the table a couple of things that maybe some of the other candidates don't. Number one, I think I can refute the narrative that America is systemically racist perhaps better than others can because of the experience of my father. My father never knew his father, so it's not a death sentence. My father ended up cleaning toilets when I was a kid. He started a little cafe and ran that until he was in his 80s. And he ended up owning the property where the cafe was, a little bit of property adjacent to it, plus the home we still have in our family. My dad, when he retired, was a little under a millionaire. He was thrown out of the house when he was 13 years old by his irresponsible mother. And still my father was able to be a very, very successful man. And my dad always told my brothers and me the following: hard work wins. You get out of life what you put into it. Larry, you cannot control the outcome, but you are 100% in control of the effort. And before you complain about what somebody did or said to you, go to the nearest mirror, look at it, and ask yourself, what could I have done to change the outcome? Finally, my dad said this: no matter how hard you work, how good you are, bad things are going to happen. How you deal with those bad things will tell your mother and me if we raised a man.
Wow.
This is a fantastic country, Kevin. Right now, as we speak, there are Haitians that are lining up for a chance at a lottery to get here to America. One of the most successful groups in America are Nigerian Americans who have a higher net worth and per capita income than white Americans. Don't give me this nonsense about America being systemically racist. Barack Obama got a higher percentage of the white vote than did John Kerry 4 years earlier. This is a fantastic country. The people that need to embrace our values often are the ones who were born and raised here. I have to be reminded of how great it is by the immigrant population who come here appreciating American values, patriotism, liberty, hard work, accountability, and in my opinion, the Judeo-Christian work ethic that we have in this country that made America great. I've done 2 documentaries, one called Uncle Tom, one called Uncle Tom 2. In Uncle Tom, I talk about how black people after slavery kept moving forward, even though there was KKK, even though there was Jim Crow. Why? Because it was rare for a black kid to be born without a mother and a father in a home. There was an embrace of Judeo-Christian values. There was an appreciation of entrepreneurship and an embrace of American patriotic values, even as America was not living up to those values. Now those are all under assault by organizations like Black Lives Matter. On their website, Kevin, they attack the nuclear family as a Western construct. The founders are trained Marxists, and Marx, as you know, was an atheist who did not believe in capitalism, did not believe in entrepreneurship, and they're not patriotic. So all those things are under attack by organizations like that. And we need to stand up to them and tell young people that there is a future. All they have to do is work for it. All they have to do is believe in themselves and believe in this country, and you can make it in America. You can't make it in America. You can't make it anywhere.
No, and I think you're right. I don't think any nation in the history of the world or currently on planet Earth has given as much opportunity to all people. Yeah, sure, we've had our problems. Sure, we've made mistakes. Sure, we've had to course correct multiple times. But the Constitution, as it's written, I would add your amendment, but as it's written, is the best document for governing people that I think ever has been written. And I want to add that Larry Elder amendment to it, because I love your vision for America. The Larry Elder Vision for America, I think that could be a title for a book, and that'd be a book I'd buy and read cover to cover.
Frederick Douglass said, "It is easier to build strong children than to fix broken men." We need to fix the family.
Oh, you're right on. You're brilliant. All right. Well, thank you so much, Larry. We really appreciate having you here. We hope to have you back many, many more times.
I appreciate it.
You know, it's an amazing thing to have men like Larry Elder come into the Economic War Room, but they see the problems, and there's an economic component to almost all of them. We try to make it about the money so we can get liberty, security, and values. We don't want ESG. We don't want woke nonsense. So we're training financial advisors at Liberty University so people can weaponize their money. We're giving people alternatives to central bank digital currency and all of that. Larry came to visit us at Liberty Hawk Ranch. I hope he'll come back even more. You can read his writings at LarryElder.com. I'm going to summarize all this in a free economic battle plan. You'll find it at EconomicWarRoom.com. Remember, what we see as a marketplace, our enemies view as a battle space. This is Kevin Freeman from the Economic War Room.